You are listening to the Municipal Voice on WHHLP 103.5 FM, broadcasting live from downtown New Haven. We are streaming live on TuneIn Radio and newhavenindependent.org. We are also streaming live on Facebook Live. Just go to facebook.com/newhavenindependent or go to your Facebook page and look us up. In the first 200 years of Connecticut's history, most of the growth centered around the large cities, Hartford, Bridgeport, and of course right here in New Haven. As those cities grew, so did the surrounding areas. In the 1780s, a few groups of individuals in New Haven felt that they had enough claim to settle areas north and east. Those became North Haven, East Haven, and Hamden, whose mayor, Curt Leng, joins us today. Thanks for being here. What does it mean, 200 years later, to be Hamden? What are some of the benefits of being a first-ring suburb of a city like New Haven?
I think that you get really a little bit of the best of both worlds, if you will. Mm-hmm. We're close enough to New Haven to enjoy the arts and the culture of New Haven.
Yeah, get the nightlife and everything.
Right,
yeah.
And the feel of a city. But you also get in Hamden the ability to, just a few miles away, be in the forest or be in the countryside.
Mount Carmel. Yeah.
So there's a little bit of everything. And our town in itself is very much a microcosm of the state of Connecticut. Mm-hmm. We have rich, we have poor. We have a very diverse population, from ethnicity to religion to socioeconomic background, and a lot of very interesting neighborhoods throughout town. Mm-hmm. So we're our own little state.
Well, because that brings us into the other thing, because you are so tied with the city of New Haven, what differentiates, what makes Hamden stand out, not just a place where people in New Haven sleep, but what makes it its own unique city?
I would...
we got a little adjustment here from Draws. Thank you, Draws.
Thank you. I would say the number one thing is that despite the fact that we're 62,000 strong and mm-hmm. one of the few towns that actually grew in the last census, mm-hmm. We have a very small sense of community. Yeah. And this past weekend on Saturday, there was the Hamden Fest. It's a mm-hmm. business expo combined with a craft fair and some entertainment. Okay. And it's amazing how many people in a town of 65,000 mm-hmm. know each other personally. Yeah. There's the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Mm-hmm. I think we have the 3 degrees of Hamden. So you have that small town feel and a neighborhood feel that you don't necessarily have if you're living on the 11th floor of an apartment.
That's interesting. What kind of ways do you work with New Haven and other suburbs in the area?
So, I mean, we work regionally, certainly through the Council of Governments. Okay. And we've generally been supportive of most of the things that New Haven's been pushing for to help the city, because mm-hmm. the better the city does, the better the suburbs do.
Very symbiotic.
We all have a symbiotic relationship. We live and die together, and supporting each other is important. Mm-hmm. Recently, we've had some very serious situations with our police department.
Yes, and that's been in the news a lot,
and that's forced us, mm-hmm. in a good way, to learn how to work together in a more proactive manner.
Departmental sort of stuff, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we're now visiting the New Haven district management team meetings mm-hmm. and getting to know both their department and their neighbors. And we're going to be starting a pilot program with a neighborhood management program, mm-hmm. very similar. And there's an imaginary line that stops, crosses New Haven to Hamden, right? Uh-huh. The regions literally cut down the middle of some of our streets. Yeah. And
like one side of the street is one town, the other side. Okay, yeah.
And we need to get to know each other better as neighbors and support mm-hmm. each other even more.
So that this is a new initiative?
Yes.
Born out of this recent controversy?
Yes.
And when is that starting? Is that already in motion?
It's been ongoing for several weeks now.
Yes. Okay, so it's already happening.
Yeah.
All right, that's great. Recently we had former Hamden Mayor Carl Amento on, who is now the head of the Southern Connecticut Regional Council of Governments. And he told us about a series of projects, ideas, and initiatives that are happening in the area. What do you think, what's going on in Hamden? What do you think are good ideas for other municipalities in relation to, the region and the Council of Government sort of model?
Mm-hmm. I worked for Mayor Amento for a couple of years, and mm-hmm. we served in the council together, actually. So
your mentor,
yeah, absolutely. Carl's a good man, and he's really perfect for that role in the regional role. We talk a lot about regionalism, but we don't mm-hmm. do enough regionalism. Yeah. And it's not for a lack of trying or lack of desire, but quite honestly, it's hard. Mm-hmm. There are challenges in trying to put together mm-hmm. packages. I'll give you an example. In Hamden, we got close to working with North Haven and having a regional dispatch center.
Okay.
We just built a new one in our police station. We had extra space. They needed some
you
space.
had the capacity. They
Absolutely.
Needed,
so we had the capacity. We had the space. North Haven needed it. We would have actually received additional grant funds from the state of Connecticut. But at the time, there was two things that kind of put the kibosh on it.
Okay.
One was there were challenges with the union contracts, and one contract had a certain pay scale versus another, certain benefit packages.
Across the town lines, yeah.
Correct. And people tried to work through that, but that was a real stumbling block. And then there was also still a sense among some of our residents that got through to some of our council people at the time, and this was just 8 years ago, 7 years ago, that if we're sharing our services, then our services aren't going to be as good.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't logical to me because when you look at it, they're in the same call center. They're in Hamden. They're the same people making the calls.
Yeah.
It's not that the service is being reduced. It's not even that they're moving out of town, but that sense of we want our services to be ours. Is
people very protective.
Absolutely.
In in some cases rightfully so.
Sure.
But you also said that was 8 years ago. So that's before we were in, I mean, we've always had budget issues in Connecticut, but before the current sort of real crisis situation. Do you think that now that, money from the state is in question, that it's time to reopen some of those discussions?
I do. I think that everything should be on the table when it comes to ways to have different efficiencies and to save some dollars in the budget. Every dollar counts now.
Yeah. I know it was just this week that you, for the first time, vetoed a budget from the council. Is that right?
I did. The council budget process goes from March to May, and I recommended a budget begrudgingly with 3/4 of a mill tax increase, a small increase. Was really hoping to try and hold it down. Hamden's tax rate is one of the higher in the state, and it's something that has crept up in recent years, trying to address some of our longer standing financial issues, structural financial issues. And when the council budget process was going on, the tax numbers started to creep up and creep up and creep up, and then it pushes to a 50 tax rate mill, 49.99,
which is a big number that really stands out to people.
It is. Yeah. It's a very strong number symbolically, and it also hits people in the dollars too. If you have a slightly above average assessed house in Hamden, the tax difference is about $150 to $400. That's a payment difference. So it's not just a couple of dollars of difference. And people that are paying a lot of money already aren't looking for another bill for that 3 times as much.
Now, you mentioned that it's one of the higher ones in the state, but earlier you also said that Hamden is one of the few towns in the state that has actually grown. Where do you what's that dynamic there? If people are coming in, is there more of a tax base coming in? What's the dynamic there?
I think that people come to Hamden because they recognize a value, and they want, whether it's the ability, as we talked about earlier, to be right close to City New Haven and have if maybe they work in the city and they could have a 5 to 10 minute commute. We have great neighborhoods. I think people move in for the quality of the neighborhoods themselves, for the school system. We have a lot of new families that come in that want to use Hamden's school system, and we have a lot of people that talk about our parks and our open space, and between those 3 things, there's still value. But the problem is that you push that cost to a certain level, and I think that we're getting close to that precipice. And the value is not as high anymore, and that's what I think is
the benefits of that can be generated by a larger tax base, by a town spending some on civic projects. At some point, the appeal of the better schools starts to lose ground to that tax rate, and you feel like you're at that point. Yes,
I do. And the problem with Hamden, when you look at our budget, is that the vast majority of our taxes do come from residential. We don't
property tax.
Yeah, from property tax.
As in pretty much in all towns in Connecticut, really.
Yes, absolutely. And if we could chat about that a bit, because I think
I would love to talk about that. Maybe the way the state
progressive tax system that there is, but Hamden's tax base itself does not have a lot of areas zoned for business. So our business tax base, the portion of our taxes from commercial is smaller, and it's not due to vacancy, because our vacancy rate is very, very low in the region. but we just don't have a lot of land that's zoned
It's
for
developed,
commercial.
and yeah.
So there's a few actually pretty exciting projects that are happening. A couple that are on the forefront, but they're not going to be game changers that are going to
Huge
shift
revenue generators.
a quarter of the taxes over to commercial. So that's one of the challenges that we face.
Talking about the state and the challenges there, and also the tax base. I know New Haven has Yale. You have Quinnipiac, which is tax exempt too, right?
Yes.
And then there's the pilot program. Do you think there needs to be changes to that formula for cities especially and towns like yours that have a large proportion of land to non-taxable?
Without question. We got into a point where, like I said before, you can only tax so much, and what we need to do on a local level is get the power to diversify the tax base. The municipal, the only municipal tax that's allowed is a property tax.
It's a property
right?
tax, yeah.
So, person living here in a $200,000 house that has a terrific job and a great savings account. And this person here has got no job with the exact same value house or tax the same amount.
They're going to tax the same amount. Yeah.
It's just an unfair system in my opinion.
Yeah,
right?
in many people's opinions.
So to be able to diversify that and have perhaps a homestead exemption, to be able to have some different fees assessed. This year we talked about, and we actually our delegation and Senator Looney, who covers Hamden and New Haven. Brought a bill forward that would allow us to charge a municipal fee to nonprofits, nonprofit universities that for police and fire services. And
okay, because they pick up the phone and call the police. It's your police that are responding. Yeah.
Sure. Quinnipiac is a wonderful institution, and it's a real value to have in the town.
Yeah.
But it also taxes us financially. So we need to evolve, and as things are adjusting, that diversification of revenues, I think, will include the larger institutions. It should include the larger institutions too. New Haven even more so because half of their land is nonprofit.
Yeah. What else do you see a need for from the state, from legislators, to make your job easier, to allow for diversification, to allow for regionalism? You mentioned there's some barriers to that before. Is there things the state can do to make that easier too?
I would say that just a quick plug, since the budget was approved last night. Hamden did well in the budget. I think that the budget, like any budget, I haven't reviewed every single component of it. But overall, I think that it was a very good attempt to keep municipalities whole, and that's really important because we're overtaxed as it is.
Yeah. So you did avoid that 50% of the new one.
We did.
Yeah. Okay.
And we're doing well in the budget. The ECS reforms that were put into place were funded still.
Educational cost sharing.
Thank you. I do that all the time. I'm sorry.
We do too. Yeah.
We in Hamden since 15, almost 20 years ago, should have been receiving per formula over $16 million a year more
from the state
education cost
for
sharing.
education.
Correct. If that money had come in, our mill rate would be 5-6 mils lower, and our pension would be fully funded.
Okay.
I mean, it's
that's money that the
difference.
state said you should be getting, and then it just
per formula
didn't show up,
right.
Or what was the? Is there an excuse? So there's like, nope, sorry,
there wasn't enough money to put in the formula.
So the money was just not there.
Correct.
Okay.
And so the reform efforts, there was a real desire to assist a lot of the inner ring suburbs. Some of were one of the alliance districts, and we were not only kept whole with our education cost sharing money, but we went up $1 million this year.
Yeah.
And there's a plan that's a 10-year plan actually, so incremental, to get us up almost $10 million more over that period of time.
But that is the same money that we were talking about these days, or this is a different?
It's the same. It's Alliance District, but it's still in the education cost sharing pool.
But, so that extra money should be coming to you, is supposed to be coming to you, but yet again might not if it continues to be the same sort of problem where the money's not there. Or
well, so far so good. First 2 years of the program has stayed solid under two different administrations and different legislative bodies. I think there's a commitment to make sure that the alliance districts are covered.
Well, can you explain a little bit for the people at home, what is an alliance district? What's that structure?
So the alliance district is set up in a way that districts that need a little extra funding because their student population, it's a formula that I'm not going to be able to recite off the top of my head, but essentially, if you have more students that are on free and reduced lunch, if you need some help with your test scores, and your population demographics call for it, you can get some additional funding to put toward programs, and it has to be used and the vast majority on new programs.
On new programs, you can't just use it for your basic
correct
fund. Okay,
correct. But I didn't answer your question, which was what can the legislators do for us?
Yeah.
I think they can enable us to do more. I'll give you a little example. So we have a tornado hit down in Hamden in 2018. We had a lot of damage to a good number of houses.
Houses,
2,000 trees in neighborhoods.
Sleeping Giant
go down, 2,000 more in Sleeping Giant come down. But a year later, a lot of our residents are still really feeling, the financial crunch of it from having to clean up their properties, clean up their houses.
Yeah.
And I think that if you can't live in your house, and if your house is significantly damaged, you shouldn't have to face the same property tax during that period of time. There should be the ability to have a waiver. And a lot of these rules, the ones that I really like are the ones that you can opt into. So you let the town choose.
So the state's not mandating you have to do this. It's saying if you'd like to, if this works for your community,
right,
you're allowed to do this.
We can choose to do it and choose not to. Mike Freya is a Republican in North Haven. I'm a Democrat in Hamden. We work together very well.
Yep, he's been a guest on the show, and he's on the board too. Yep.
Yeah, on the COG board, right? And CCM. And we talk about it a lot, that there's certain opt-in things that we've discussed that he might be interested in, I might not be, and vice versa. But he would support the ability for a town to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And, having the ability to waive taxes for a year for
someone that was in a storm
crisis situation.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. Would be really helpful. Now, that's not going to generate revenue, but that's certainly going to help somebody. It might help somebody to stay in a town and stay in a community and put that money into building their house back up and building the grand list up in the long run.
Yeah. Let me pause for one moment to do a station ID here. You are listening to the Municipal Voice on WNHH LP 103.5 FM, broadcasting live from downtown New Haven. We are streaming live on TuneIn Radio and newhavenindependent.org. We are also streaming live on Facebook Live. Just go to facebook.com/New Haven Independent or go to ccm-ct.org. So you just mentioned in what the state can do, the tornado, but the tornado came up in other ways recently with us. You've received some praise for the way you handled that, especially your use of social media and technology to update and keep the populace informed. You can talk about how your philosophies on that and how it worked out.
First, this you're no better than your team, and we're very lucky to have very experienced and battle tested public works director and public works crews, police, fire, emergency management teams, and we've had some storms that have hit the town, and unfortunately, we've been, the number ones in a few of them. The most snow in
that blizzard, that was
the region,
4 feet or something.
It was
3.5,
unbelievable. A number of ice storms, hurricanes, and then of course we had the tornado last year. But residents understand that it takes time to clean out from things like this, and it takes time to make things safe. And I've really found that they've appreciated, our folks have appreciated greatly getting information on what's happening, getting updates on what's happening around to their neighbors, if they can help neighbors.
Yep.
There are people that didn't have power for 5 days, 6 days in some of these storms. Sometimes this is the only piece of, only tool that they could get information from. And what was really cool about it for me is that I can push information out and actually interact with people, both one-on-one and to a larger audience. So I can go out and show people what they might not be able to see because they can't really get out of their neighborhood.
Yeah. We're dealing with it, and we're going to get to your neighborhood. But right now, this is going on,
and
as soon as
actually
this is
UI's
dealt
here,
with,
and they're working, and here's actually the trucks, and here's what they're doing with the wires, and what we can and can't do. But what was one of the neatest parts for me was that then that message went way beyond social media, and someone would go and knock on a neighbor's door that wasn't engaged, and maybe it was a senior that was home, and say, "Hey, I got an update on what's happening." And we don't have as much media in this day and age, or at least not the traditional medias. So it's been really an effective tool. It comes with its own set of problems. There's always a little more contention, in direct back and forth with folks.
But that is interesting because it's not just you putting a statement out to the newspaper or whatever. It is a two-way street.
Absolutely.
And you find that useful, the feedback as well as getting the message out, getting stuff back?
Absolutely. One of the most important things to do as an elected leader is communicate. And I love the election seasons when you walk door to door and talk to people on their doorsteps, because I find them to be really in a more relaxed mood, and you can communicate more, and they'll really share what's on their mind, more so than they will in a formalized setting where maybe somebody doesn't like to be a public speaker or might not want to talk about a particular issue in front of others, and going to civic association meetings and PTAs and such, because you get that feedback. What do people like?
Yeah.
What do they not like? What do they think is pretty good, but we need to work on a little bit more? And the social media, in large part, there's always a smaller fraction that's not as productive, let's say, right? But in large part, there's been very good ability to get back and forth on issues, and it's been really helpful in addressing people's constituent needs. Hey, I have this problem right here.
Yeah,
can you help me with it? And a lot of times, there's something you could do about that right away.
Yeah.
Whereas pre-social media world, you might get a letter. It's going to be in a pile,
and then that pile's got to go to the appropriate person in the right department.
You've got it, and all of a sudden weeks are by, and the person's not feeling like their priority is met.
Yeah.
Whereas you can deal with something, and you could fill a pothole that same day. You can
see it, be like, oh, it's a pothole. Yeah, that should get fixed.
We got to
forward to the person that should take care of that,
and boom, they're out there, and it's happening. And even if it's not fixed that day, if we can get an inspector out to take a look at a tree or take a look at a sidewalk problem or a drainage issue, people know that you're actually trying to help them and that you care.
Yeah. So transparency in a lot of ways too. Yeah.
That's right, because if you don't deliver on those things,
everyone sees them complain, like, I said this thing and you never showed up. And then
you got it.
Everyone sees it and they share it, and all of a sudden it's out there.
Yes, it is.
You can't just hide. So we're coming up here. We're at the end of the legislative session. Are there any issues that came up this year that, votes that went one way, didn't, that you want to address, that you think are important that people know about?
For Hamden, like I said, the overall budget process went well. We were particularly excited about the ability to acquire a piece of property that that's been on our radar for a long time. It's a 40-acre property on Hartford Turnpike that was under the state's ownership. Used to be a correctional, a low security correctional and troubled teen center.
Okay.
And about a year and a half, 2 years ago, it was being eyed as a lower security prison, and it would be right in the middle of a neighborhood. And
not ideal.
You always say a stone's throw, but literally within 100 feet of, on one side a neighborhood, on one side a church, a quarter of a mile from two schools.
Yeah.
You really couldn't have picked a worse place if you tried. Luckily, through funding and some assistance from Senator Looney and Fasano, that didn't happen. And we started to look at the parcel because it really it's a beautiful, large campus-like parcel of land with park space, a couple of buildings. It's on Hartford Turnpike.
Oh, okay.
Right across from the Unitarian Church. Trying to think of the number now. I think it's 750, I believe. Okay. And we started to inquire, and at first it was like, no, this is actually one of the properties we want to do something with. And our position was, as long as it's productive and it's not going to harm the neighborhood, fantastic.
Yeah.
But nothing seemed to be happening, and there wasn't a great interest in moving it forward. So it was vacant, and it was an expense for the state because they were maintaining it every week. And there was a bill that was approved to allow us to acquire it, and we're going to work to acquire it. And then my hope is that we would turn that into both an economic development and civic generating activity. And what I mean by that is, I think a large portion of the property that we can redevelop and sell, adding to the tax base.
Okay. Yeah.
But there's also some great open space and a picnic area and a tennis court.
So there's enough acreage and space here that you could do both. You could carve a park out of it that would be a nice park, and some commercial space that bring in some business,
without question, and the kind of impact commercial that's not going to affect the neighborhood at all.
And so the legislature
passed a bill,
okay,
that would allow us to acquire it at a reasonable rate. So we have to work on that over the next year.
Yeah. Is there anything else that stands out to you about legislation this year that really you were watching?
If I wanted to be a bit of a critic, I would have liked to see more revenue diversification opportunities. I think that having a homestead exemption of some sort to protect homeowners that have been here for a long time. I'm not sure what the number needs to be. I know in Senator Looney's bill, That was a complicated bill, but the number was 50,000 was a portion of it that would be protected, taken out of the assessment, your taxation assessment. I wish that some of the diversification efforts went forward. But what I thought was interesting about this session was that a lot of issues that were talked about for a long time, a good number of them actually moved. And you saw paid family medical leave.
Okay, that's a big one. Yep.
You saw minimum wage. You saw marijuana get close.
Yeah.
Issues that have been talked about for a long time, but
PTSD was a big one this year. Remember that? That was
absolutely
with the cops and firefighters,
without question. And it seems like there's a renewed sense of ability to actually get bills from concept idea to law.
So you find that encouraging?
I do. Absolutely.
Not everything got done that needed to get done, but they were showing an openness to at least address some things that need to be.
Yes, and we had a larger presence in Hartford this year. Hamden, for the first time, had a legislative director that was up in Hartford every day. And we were always very active members in CCM, and you guys did a wonderful job of advocating for towns and cities.
Well, thank you. Yep.
And being up there this year, my physical sense in encountering different senators and representatives was 2 years ago, a year ago, you talk about something, and there would be empathy, and then there would be but it's a mess, and we have to do this and this, and it's going to be tough to get there.
Yeah.
This year, there really seemed to be some enthusiasm and optimism of being able to attack these things and having some possibility of an outcome.
And do you think that changes new governor? What do you think made the difference?
I think any new administration launching is a big part of it, and there was also some seats that changed in the legislature, so things shook up a little bit, and you had a new day, and
some new leadership, some new challenges that just need to be addressed. Yeah.
And a lot of times you'll hear people say, the first 100 days and then you're done. If you have your first 100 days and you accomplish some things, I'm hoping that will, which is what happened.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that will actually allow the ball to keep rolling
and accomplish more things. Yeah. Didn't get everything, but it was a good start.
Yeah. You lost that first part, and then it's really tough.
If you're already stalled out at the beginning, getting going, getting momentum is tough.
Right.
So one issue that we've talked about a fair amount on the show and in CCM publications is the new challenges for towns around recycling, and the way the market has changed with China now refusing a lot of stuff, and it's gone from a revenue generator, selling the recycling, to it costs towns generally to get rid of it now. You guys have done some interesting stuff to try to alleviate some of that cost, including the pink bag program and some other stuff. We want to talk about what's going on with recycling and that kind of stuff.
Sure. Recycling is something that we've been working to teach the public about better and to get higher usage and to essentially get more product out of the waste stream and into a recycle and reuse stream.
Yeah, because as we've talked about, even though recycling it's turned to a cost, recycling is still cheaper than regular garbage.
Absolutely. Yeah. The specific numbers in Hamden, $72 a ton to dispose of municipal solid waste,
garbage,
right? And we're around $50 a ton at this moment. And we're negotiating a new contract, so we'll see where we land. But
for the recycling,
it used to be zero.
Yeah.
And there was a long time where we would either bring in some money,
a little bit of money, or break
even, or have a small cost, but the cost wasn't something that the town had to absorb because it was something that was part of business of the collectors, and they knew that they were going to be in a window. The thing that I learned over the last year and a half, that astounded me is that if you have your single stream recycling, and we have the single stream like a lot of towns do.
Big old bin. If it's recyclable, it goes in the thing.
Put everything. You've got a in-roll label that says, throw these things in this.
These things, yes.
Bin,
these
right?
things, no. Yep.
Our recycling numbers have gone up. People are more encouraged though to put more in it, and sometimes the stuff isn't recyclable, which contaminates the load. The shocking one for me was that one glass bottle, if broken, can contaminate a load of garbage.
Like the entire thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Those little tiny bits get in,
you got it.
And they're hard to get out.
Gets in the cardboard and gets in the paper goods, which right now still have a lot of value. And if you get the glass intermingled in it, the value is gone. So
clean paper worth something. Paper with a little bit of glass in it, done.
Nothing. and same with cardboard. So one of the things that we've actually been toying around with a little bit is banning or trying to educate people to keep the glass out for a while. We haven't done it. It's not something implemented, but it's something that we're thinking about because it would save us some money and it would allow the recyclables to be recycled.
I think maybe they need to put deposits. I mean, obviously this wouldn't be something you do at a town level, but like deposits on all glass bottles or something like that.
I think we would really go back to encouraging people to use the deposit process,
system,
right?
Yeah.
And then perhaps separate out the glass, and we'll still pick it up in some fashion, but instead of a single stream, which we've worked hard to get people to put everything in that one bin, Times are saying that we may have to have a couple of different containers, and so we're trying to explore that a little bit.
One of the different containers that we mentioned was the pink bag. Tell us about the pink bag.
So this program allows you to take clothes that you wanted to get rid of. And some people will bring it to Salvation Army or Goodwill, and that's wonderful. But some people have been putting it in the trash.
They're busy. They're trying to clean up. Throw it in.
Right. I've got the bag. I've wanted to bring it for a week and have it, and there it goes into the waste stream. I just want it gone. Right. Yeah. And right now we don't have the ability to recycle, so it's not going to get into the single stream and get sorted out and be recycled. So there's this program that now will allow every household to get this pink bag. They can fill it with clothing goods and a few other soft goods that otherwise might get into the container. It gets picked up on a weekly basis, right on or right after your recycling day.
They put it out the same day as recycling.
You got it. It gets picked up, another bag gets dropped off, and the town even gets a small residual depending on how much it's used. And I've seen the bags in all of our neighborhoods over the last month.
So you're working with a company that then buys that clothes at a certain rate from you?
They actually see what they can do with however they sell it and however they reuse the material, and then we'll get a small amount per
get
tonnage.
A cut. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
If it's break even, still be good.
Break even.
That's all we're looking
it's still
for.
better than paying $50 a ton or $75 a ton.
You got it.
Related, you also recently hired Joseph DeRisi, who many in Southern Connecticut will know from his shop and business, Urban Miners. You said in a statement you'll be working closely on a number of new green initiatives. What kind of initiatives are you launching in 2019?
So it's following up on that same recycling and reuse discussion, right? So Joe brings with him not just the knowledge of your traditional recycling, but he brings the true reuse knowledge with him.
So his company, Urban Miners, I've seen and visited before. He actually takes apart old houses and will sell the lumber. He'll sell the flooring.
You can find value and interest from people in almost every bit of material that comes out of an older house, which no one would really assume at first glance. There are municipal uses for that too. We're going to work very hard this upcoming year and a half to update and renovate some of our fire stations, as an example. Every bit of product that we can reuse or that we could sell to another location that's interested in this material that we might otherwise just toss.
Taking the stuff out instead of throwing it in the garbage.
You got it.
He might help you figure out who would benefit from this.
And we've never had anybody like that that has that side of the reduce reuse.
Yeah, it's a really interesting way to look at it.
And I've talked with he's done a couple projects with our economic development coordinator, and they really get down to almost every single piece of the material, the entire house.
Almost down, not quite to the nails, but just short.
You're getting close.
Yeah, it's really fascinating stuff. I've seen the stuff online I follow, and it's a floor and whatever, but it's also some of these barns. It's 200-year-old solid, chestnut wood. Right. So it's something that you would pay a lot of money for if it was polished up and in an antique shop or whatever.
Absolutely. There's antique value, and like you said, the materials themselves. So long as they're not contaminated in some way, the materials themselves a lot of times were a better made material. So we're hoping to look at that.
Yeah, let's hope it works out. Maybe in a year we'll be talking about the successes of these new initiatives. Right?
That'd be pretty great to say that we did this fire station and we were able to save X% off the cost by just being creative.
It could be something that could be copied in other towns if it performs.
If we could be someone
the shining example of recycling.
That's right. We'll do it. Right.
Go Hamden. So we're just about to wrap it up here. Is there anything else kind of closing you want to talk about? coming up in the next year from the past year?
Well, our summers are always exciting in town. We have a lot of programs that that are on our town green. That's really big. Our
I
town
saw
center
some of the
park.
music programs are coming up too.
Yep, we can't announce them yet because we
Top
actually have a
secret?
contractual arrangement with one of the groups that we can't say anything until the 10th.
Ooh.
But it's a really good
Well, if there's
lineup.
contractual obligation, they must be big enough to justify that. So everyone pay attention to find out what kind of music's going to be going on in Hamden this summer.
But we're also working very hard on a number of school renovation projects and a redistricting and repurposing and rethinking of the school system.
You're shifting some stuff around?
The Board of Education is working on a program that the most exciting piece for me would be universal pre-K. Universal pre-K, I think, could be a game changer for the town.
This is new?
It is new.
Okay.
And if we had universal pre-K at all of our schools, I really think that would be an incredible marketing tool for our town. And I said before, I do believe, and I've heard from many families that they move here for education and for a few other reasons.
When you talk about moving to Hamden, the schools comes up a lot. Yeah.
Universal pre-K would be a driver. It would do two things. It would save people money because care for young children is incredibly expensive. And number two, and this is the most important part, it would allow us to help close the opportunity gap, close the achievement gap, because
poor families can't necessarily afford that pre-K.
Correct, and I Representative Robin Porter uses opportunity gap instead of achievement gap, and I like that because it means that it's not a gap in the ability to achieve. You have to be given the opportunity to achieve, and if you give them if someone an opportunity to achieve by allowing every single person the opportunity to go to that same pre-K, and have that same starting point with that same curriculum and that same basis to start learning, it could be really amazing.
There is studies out there showing that going to pre-K helps not just for kindergarten, but going forward
all through school.
It follows you the entire way.
It is the number one driver for the
success.
Gap. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a really exciting thing to look forward to.
One of many.
One of many.
But that's a big one that we're working on right now.
Well, great. We'll have to have you back on
I'd love
in a few months and talk about how some of those things go.
That sounds terrific.
Excellent. Well, the Municipal Voice is a co-production by CCM and WNHH 103.5 FM. Kevin Maloney is our executive producer. Christopher Gilson is our producer. Harry Draws is on the boards, and I'm your host, Matt Ford. I'd like to thank Mayor Curt Leng for being on the show, and tune in next time.